right, my good friend General Meow Meow's here, and as always, one is enough for me. Zero is enough for me, to be honest. If anyone is so inclined, there is a QR code at the top of the screen in case you want to send me some money. I don't like asking for stuff like that, but hey, there it is. Why not? So let's go ahead and get into chapter 10 of the Nazis and the occult, the Black Knights, because they were obsessed with the Knights Templar, the medieval knights also of the Round Table. And like many other groups, they wanted to co-opt history and sort of retrofit it into their own belief system. So the Nazis and the occult, chapter 10, the Black Knights. At the end of the day, the Nazi project was an occult cult. It was formed within a framework of revolutionary idealism, which often tends to end in detachment and atrocity. I think that it was a mixture of satanic sadism and this idealism that led the Nazis into a path of war they could not win. Perhaps they should have listened to Countess Heila von Westarp, who did warn that a dark messiah would come and lead Germany to ruin. So let's go ahead, excuse me, and get into this. This is a picture of the Black Sun seen in, I never know how to say that, Wellwisburg. I don't know how to say anything in German. All right, so chapter 10, the Black Knights. Let's go. So all of these chapters begin with a quote. This one is a quote from Hitler himself. It said, "The selection of the new Führer class is what my struggle for power means. Whoever proclaims his allegiance to me is, by the very proclamation and by the manner in which it is made, one of the chosen," right? Because at the end of the day, it was a cult. And we'll see the secrecy, we'll see the hierarchy, we'll see the lack of able to criticize it. This is the great significance of our long, dogged struggle for power, that in it will be born a new master class, chosen to guide the fortunes not only of the German people, but of the world. End quote. Adolf Hitler. And it sort of also sounds like before maybe they understood what technocracy was, what they wanted to form. And I think that's kind of the legacy of Nazi Germany, is that, like it or not, we imported a lot of them and we formed a technocracy with some willing ex-Nazis. So here we go. Though we have not yet learned all of the secrets of the SS and may never learn them, again, this is an older book, so there's been tons of scholarship since, but let's just continue. We do know some of them. We know that it was an occult society. This may enlighten us as to how more than 1 million SS men could change in the space of a few years from ordinary citizens to mass murderers. Some of them must have participated in the final solution just to get on, in a period when it was surely not easy just to get on. But we cannot fail to comment on the zealousness, the overzealousness, with which most men approached their tasks. Fear of punishment does not quite account for it. Yeah, because I think they were satanic. They were in a satanic cult. There were many options not picked up to quietly sabotage the SS machine without detection. One could seem perfectly willing to perform an unpleasant task and yet raise questions as to its efficacy. So, for example, the deputy head of the Nazi Health Bureau, Dr. Kurt Blom, and he's one of these guys that they brought over. This picture I found on this website here, 10 Nazi scientists who survived the war, because we imported them. So the US imported him, as they did with other Nazi doctors and scientists. Ostensibly, Dr. Kurt Blom was Hitler's head of cancer research, but in reality, he was in charge of the development of Nazi biological warfare capabilities. Blom stood trial at Nuremberg for performing euthanasia and conducting human experimentation, but he was acquitted due to the intervention of the American military. The United States government wanted to expand on Blom's intimate knowledge of human biological weaknesses to create even deadlier nerve agents. Awesome. Blum's U.S. Army Chemical Corps personnel file makes no mention of his involvement in human experimentation. He lived out the rest of his life in West Germany, working on secret projects for the American government, and remained active in the right-wing German party until his death in 1969. So he worked for us. We wanted their best and their brightest. So he wrote to his superior, Arthur Greiser, on November 18th, 1942, about the order to exterminate all the Polish population who were tubercular. And he said, quote, "There is no doubt that the method proposed is the simplest and most radical. If there could be an absolute guarantee that the matter would be kept secret, one could stifle any scruples one might have," right? So as long as we could have kept it secret, we might have been able to go through with this, but because that's not an option, let's, think about this. He said, "But I believe complete secrecy to be simply impossible, and experience shows that we must work on that assumption. Suppose that according to plan, these sick persons are dispatched to Germany ostensibly for treatment or cure, but in practice do not return. However strict the secrecy, their relatives will one day realize that there is something not quite in order here. It must also be remembered that there are large numbers of Polish workers in Germany who will be questioned about the whereabouts of their fellow countrymen. In addition, a number of Germans are related to Poles, either directly or by marriage, and they will get to know the deportation of these people. Definite information regarding this action will soon filter through and will be seized upon by enemy propaganda. The euthanasia affair showed us the form which this propaganda will take and the methods it will use. Political repercussions may all be the greater in that we are dealing with members of a defeated nation. I therefore believe that before action begins, these points should be put to the Fuhrer, since in my view, he is alone capable in considering all the implications and making the decision." End quote. By this means, Blom caused Himmler to reconsider, and the lives of thousands of Poles were saved. Here's another picture of Himmler. So I guess we recruited him because he was more reasonable. I don't know. It just all seems like the same project to me. In order to make sense of the brutal activities of the SS, it must be seen that its members were motivated, for the most part, not by sadism, but by sacrifice in a fanatical utopian cause which suspended normal judgment. And I wrote here, I think it was both. Present-day occult groups have improved our understanding of the human capacity for personality change and for expanding the boundaries of endurance, right? So this person, I'm not really sure what this person, the writer's background is here, but they did, in the foreword and things like this, they do say that they consulted a lot of occult practitioners in order to write this book. And again, this is the 70s. This was one of those, I think, times it never really seems to go away, but it seemed like there was a heightened curiosity, let's say, about this kind of stuff. But anyway, so just take some of this book with a grain of salt, I suppose, but you should do that with anything that you read. They show us how malleable people are. So that's what is in the book here. They give us new insights into how an appeal to idealism and a training for self-sacrifice can prepare people for deeds which transcend individual conscience. And indeed, they were in a cult. What's going on? So it looks like it's me and General Meow Meow and a couple of lurkers. Yeah, NASA, right? Totally. He's got the scar from that stupid sword game they would play. The sword game is called Mincer. Um, German existentialists. What's going on, Estrogeny? How's it going? Thank you for joining. Hey, feel free to lurk, sit back and relax and learn about terrifying Nazi occult cultists. All right, here we go. I don't know why I'm in such a good mood today. Um, I think yesterday I wasn't in such a good mood. I'm going to blame it on the moon. That moon was intense. Anyway, so membership in the SS seemed to present an opportunity to become part of a utopian society, its most vital part. The Nazi Revolution, like the Communist Revolution, aimed to turn things around, but instead of a class struggle, it was concerned with a racial struggle. And I wrote here, revolutionary idealism equals detachment and atrocity. And I think that they were trying to create a technocracy. Um, it wasn't just a racial struggle either, in my opinion. It's very much a dark versus light situation, I think. A new class would be brought to power, right? That's the technocracy, not the old aristocracy, but a new one based on the inherent nobility of the Aryan blood. But they also thought that they were the smartest smarty pants in the room, even though they were doing all these weird occult things that led them to lose the war, in my opinion. Um, while the people in the UK were cracking codes, they were, we'll see, were doing some weird divination. The master race was to be the culmination of a biological evolution. If inferior races prevented these goals, the master race would be justified by the natural law of Darwinism in doing whatever it needed to survive the harsh struggle for existence. This had an immediate appeal to the masses. Sons of the middle class men like Himmler, who could not even hope in that great time of the 20s and 30s to approach the comfortable standard of living of their fathers, now saw an escape route. It was not necessarily outcasts or scoundrels who joined the SS, but ordinary people, members of the lower middle classes, who saw it as a chance to participate in a movement which they could identify. They were to be the warriors against the enemy. They recognized the enemy. Many of these men had fathers who had read the books of Liszt, Lanz, Fritsch, and Chamberlain, and believed in the mystical racist package. The churches, too, had shown sympathy with Volkish ideas. In school, the future Nazis had been taught by people who had been conditioned by the same zeitgeist. On joining the SS, then, a man had little to unlearn. As a bulwark against the horror of the future, in which all avenues of growth seemed to be closed, the organization promised new options. The renunciation of personality, right? So I don't even know how many times I wrote cult in the margins while reading this book, but this is one of the things a cult will do, right? You no longer have a personality of your own. Your personality is that of the cult. Stay safe and don't join a death cult. All right. Um, so the renunciation of personality, which it required of the individual, he gladly assented to. For the sake of being part of a utopian society which would usher in a golden age, he was willing to give up personal liberty. He had been told for some time anyway that individual liberty was a fiction, right? And I think now we see certain people say that individual liberty is dangerous. And that's how you can sort of have some discernment in spotting what kind of individuals these people are. Often it was only the liberty to go down the drain. If in the process of the SS training an individual was transformed into a machine, he could justify it with propaganda that he was on the way to becoming the new man, right? The Superman. As Rudolf Hess, and we have a picture of Hess here, um, as Rudolf Hess, commandant of Auschwitz, put it, quote, we were told all the time we were the elect. We were to be the Führer's and Himmler's special instrument for creating a new Reich. They became our conscience. We lost our personal and moral self-determination. End quote. There was a feeling that the last days were at hand, right? That's how you know it's a death cult. That the subhuman Jew, Satan in disguise, had to be prevented by any means from taking over the world. A crusade of the elect in absolute obedience to the will of the charismatic Führer was a divine mission. As Himmler told the SS, and here's Himmler, quote, "We shall unremittingly fulfill our task. We shall take care that never more in Germany, the heart of Europe, can the Jewish Bolshevik revolution of subhumans be kindled internally or by emissaries from abroad. Piteously, we shall be a merciless executioner's sword for all those forces whose existence and doings we know, whether it be today or in decades or in centuries." End quote. If Germany, after World War I, was a man-made jungle, the new man was the natural man, very much at home in the economic and psychic swamp, encouraged to think with his blood and to renounce the bourgeois shackles of humanism. He turned, as Himmler had, from the tender romanticism of knightly deeds and pure fellow feeling to the savage romanticism of barbaric slaughter. In this, he was the archetypal. In this, he was the archetypal 20th century man, daring to destroy the old forms so that the new ones could be born. And so, of course, we have the image here of Baphomet, right? When I read this and I had underlined it, destroy old forms so that the new could be born. We have Salve Coagula, right? Which is it's an alchemical process to dissolve and coagulate and create something new out of that. And the Nazi project aimed to complete this alchemical cycle, dissolving the old to create the new. He was a modern warrior, accomplished in technology, who reverted to savagery so that in a curious way, he came to embody both rationalism and irrationalism. So there's a sort of paradox here. These were not the only ambiguities. Though SS men were trained to be the first stage in a superhuman mutation and already behaved as if they were supermen, they also exhibited a robot-like quality, right? Fearless and cruel, they were also capable of a cringing subservience to superiors. What was the nature of the order which could contain such paradoxes? It was an elite society with strict conditions for acceptance. Himmler himself scrutinized applicants' photographs for an intuition into their breeding. They had to prove that only pure Aryan blood flowed into their veins for 3 generations. They had to meet certain requirements of racial appearance, physical condition, and general bearing. Intellectual attainments were not considered, right? That's not important. Because also, I think if you're not super bright, you might be more prone to joining a cult and being controlled. They had to go through innumerable political and physical tests, demonstrate that there were no hereditary imperfections in their families, and be examined for racial purity by a board of doctors, racial specialists, and SS officers. The ratio of height to physique was important. No one could be under 5'7". No shorts. And if you were over 5'11" or 6'1", although this was in itself gratifying, the height must be balanced by the harmony of the rest of the body. The lower thigh, for example, must be in proportion to the upper. The hands, the gait, the bearing must be those of the desirable SS man, an ideal physical and psychological type on whose specifications they had been working since 1931, said Himmler. Even underarm perspiration was made a distinguishing characteristic. If the applicant met the specifications, then he was made a candidate. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay. We'll just keep staring at Baphomet then. All right. He had to swear an oath to loyalty, bravery, and obedience unto death to his superiors and to Hitler. An SS lieutenant general had to swear further that he would not favor his own offspring or those of other SS men, right? Your God is Hitler, okay? In the prolongation of examination and testing, Himmler copied the Jesuits, all right? So the perennial favorite of many conspiracy theorists is the Jesuits, and indeed they are an interesting group. I have a book that I could read to you about them, if that's of interest, which I bought while I was, where was I? I was at um, Connecticut. What is in Connecticut? Yale, Harvard? Yeah, Yale. Okay. I bought it at a used bookstore near Yale. So the Jesuits, right, which would serve as a template for them. Himmler copied the Jesuits with their 2-year-long period of rigorous tests and exercises for novices before they allowed them to take the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Before a candidate was allowed to consider himself an SS man, he had to pass through a year-long course to win his sports badge, a period in the labor service, and 2 years in the army. Then, after an intensive course of indoctrination, he had to wait until the following November 9th, right? So there we have 11/9. 9/11 seems to be a very important number to occultists, to become a full member. At 10 p.m. in the Nazi shrine in Munich, the acolyte attended a special mystical ceremony, binding him to his Führer, who was present. The scene before the Feldherrnhall was described thus by Nazi Emil Helfferich. Tears came to my eyes, he said, when by the light of the torches thousands of voices repeated the oath in a chorus. It was like a prayer. Himmler, yeah, like a satanic prayer. Himmler had replaced the Catholic catechism with his own series of questions and answers, which he dinned into each SS man's head. For example, question, why do you obey? Answer, from inner conviction, from belief in Germany, in the Führer, in the movement, and in the SS, and from loyalty. Himmler, so we'll just scroll back up to Himmler. Himmler was known as the Black Jesuit and created a hierarchical structure with a graded series of privileges separating the higher orders from the lower orders, with himself as general of the order. He understood well the elitist leanings of his men and their fear of losing their status. Everyone was constantly spying on everyone else, right? Because Himmler was very interested in writing notes on everyone he met and was a spy, if nothing else. And does that sound familiar? Does that bring back some memories of 2020? So everyone was constantly spying on everyone else, and even the top officers were not exempt from being visited by emissaries who arrived unannounced to see whether things were being done according to regulations. Naturally, then, despite the conditioning, these men were daily receiving that they were the hope of civilization. They lived in constant dread of being discovered to be in some way unworthy, right? This is such a cult, really. So they were afraid of being unworthy of such a high calling. As Robert Ley pointed out, and there's an image here of Robert Ley, quote, he who fails or actually betrays the party and its Führer will not thereby merely be deprived of an office, but he personally, together with his family, his wife, and his children, will be destroyed. These are the harsh and implacable laws of an order. On one hand, men may reach to the skies and grasp whatever a man can desire. On the other hand lies the deep abyss of annihilation. End quote. Yet there was a fierce pride in having been chosen for a superhuman task, and the romanticism persisted. And I believe this is still a quote by him now. And how they drilled us till we howled with rage over obstacle courses, crawling through pipes, pack drills, and long route marches in the heat, with the taps all turned off so that we could not drink. Oh my goodness. Yet no one would dream of asking for a transfer. Such was the camaraderie one got, so that one lost all criticism. One just lived one just lived in this life. One was simply an SS man. One lost the thin thread to the parents. There was no other thought than a word I cannot pronounce, but I'll try. Cadaver, cadaver gehorsam, which is just cadaver in German, right? So cadaver, obedience, was achieved not through fear, but through the creation of a religious fanaticism. I think it's probably both, which separated SS members from everyone else. The SS order was a state within a state, not subject to national law, with its own laws, courts, and judges. A curtain separated Himmler's empire from the outside world. Other Germans, no matter how lofty their position, could not penetrate it. SS men were discouraged from contact with others. Again, I wrote cult in the margin. Concentration camp guards could not be stationed near home and were shifted to new locations every 3 months and could never be transferred to street duty. So, also the absence of stability. The SS was a secret society, as journalist Heinz Hohn observed, quote, intended to be mysterious, sinister, and incomprehensible to the ordinary citizen. Like the order of the Jesuits, which the SS officially abominated, but actually imitated down to the smallest detail. The lords of this black uniform secret order deliberately cultivated the fear evoked by their mere existence. Reinhard Heydrich, deputy chief of the Gestapo, boasted, the Gestapo and the security services are enveloped in the mysterious aura of the political detective story. I need a little, and here's some random SS men in uniform here. What's going on? Looks like we have, oh, you're loving it? I put a QR code up there if you guys want to scan it and give me money. I hate saying that, but hey, whatever. General Meow Meow, an all-consuming tribe. Cults feed on the need to be part of a tribe, but a cult is always a pyramid scheme. Indeed, dupes make the foundation, feeding the top. They were so super, they lost a war. Something about the amount of drugs they took too. And I think also their investment in these dark occult practices. While the British were trying, and the Americans were trying to crack codes, the Germans were doing weird divination spells. So, and I think that's kind of what the dark occult does. It will lead you to ruin eventually. Yeah, no manlets, no shorts, no shorts. Yes, thank you, Terry. Nice to see you. Both. Nazis love Jesuits. They use them as their template. Yeah, how tall was Hitler? 5'9", so he barely made the cut. Yeah, that the numerology is always there for some reason. I don't take too much stock in the occult ritual 9/11 theories, but that's something, if you're interested in, you can delve into it on your own. No wonder people still nerd out about this to this day. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. Even as early as 1927, the SS's slogan was, quote, the aristocracy keeps its mouth shut. Members were not allowed to take part in discussions at party meetings. They were to remain silent and refrain from smoking or leaving the room. There's nothing cult-like about this at all. One of the early orders was, quote, even in the face of unjustified criticism, SS men and SS commanders are strictly forbidden to converse with SA stormtroopers and commanders, or with civilian members of the party other than as necessary for the performance of duty. Should criticism be voiced in a small gathering, members of the SS will immediately and silently leave the room with curt comment that the SS carries out Adolf Hitler's orders, right? No criticism allowed. As an early memorandum suggested, the SS was organized to be a secret order within the party to hold the movement together in an iron grip. An inner circle of 12 SS officers of top rank met in secret for conference and meditation in a monastery, right? A converted church. So here's Wewelsburg. Here's the Black Sun, very famous image from Wewelsburg Castle. And I think I have an aerial shot. Yep, here's Wewelsburg. I wonder what they were doing in the medieval times, right? It was shaped like a triangle, probably just as a fortress to, be able to keep people out. And then, of course, they would meet in this chamber here, right? So this book is calling it a monastery. It was a castle that Himmler retrofitted to be this secret meeting place of these 12 SS officers. So they would meet for conference and meditation in Wewelsburg, Westphalia, which Himmler had turned into a castle, refurbishing it. So I'm not sure if it was a castle it looks like a castle to me, but maybe it was a monastery. I don't know. Anyway, so Himmler had retrofitted it, right? Refurbishing it at tremendous expense. The town was built on the foundations of a burg that went back to Charlemagne, and Himmler supposedly searched for the province of this castle because he had heard that in the next confrontation with the East, a Westphalian castle would be the only stronghold to survive. In the 100 by 145-foot dining room circling a round oak tree, each officer knight sat on a high-backed pigskin chair, a silver plate engraved with his name hanging from the back. Each wore his own coat of arms and slept in a room done in a period style suitable to a particular German hero. Reminds me of the Freemasons and all their themed rooms. Himmler, of course, choosing King Heinrich I, which we learned about last time we read about Himmler here, whose spirit apparently gave him invaluable counsel. And I wrote, was he possessed in the margin? Himmler would say on occasion, in this case, King Heinrich would have acted as follows. Heinrich I was not the only great spirit of the past with whom Himmler was able to communicate. And that's, of course, we have the thread of spiritualism throughout the late 1800s into this time period, right? It still persists to this day. He believed that he had the power to call up others and hold conferences with them, but only if they had been dead for hundreds of years. In the bowels of the castle was a funeral room containing a sunken well and a hollowed-out stone pillar. When one of the 12 top-ranking officers died, his ashes were placed in a cremation urn by the wall, and then it was burned on top of a pillar, and the smoke would rise above the well because of a cleverly arranged ventilating scheme. For a week, once a year, Himmler and his 12 Knights of the Round Table, in an atmosphere of secret confinement, gave themselves over completely to mental and spiritual exercises of visualization. A professor of anthropology at Occidental College in California, C. Scott Littleton, provided me with astonishing details of another SS ceremony. Right. And so this is a little bit of a rumor here that this author has chosen to include, but here we go, which has not been corroborated by anyone else, but which may well be true. A professor, friend of his, he claims, saw original Nazi depositions taken for the Nuremberg trials, but never included in the record, which told of a periodic sacrifice wherein a fine Aryan specimen of an SS man was beheaded, and the severed head made a vehicle for communion, with secret masters in the caucus. And I wrote, like the head of John the Baptist and the Knights Templar. And it is rumored that the Knights Templar also worship the severed head of John the Baptist. Nazis, like other occult groups, have taken everything and created their own menagerie of dark occult beliefs. Also, this website, if you ever click here, hosts a strange collection of John the Baptist's head, which, you know what, while we're here, we'll go look at it because it's bizarre. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this theory that that the Knights Templar worshipped the severed head of John the Baptist. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But the Nazis also seem to, if this is true, right? Because this is one of these things in the book that is not, it seems a little bit like a rumor, but it is pretty salacious. Let's see, they must have been using DMT. Well, they did invent meth, and then the Japanese perfected it. So Himmler, the psychic medium. Yes, it is. It's sickening. The dark occult is very, very sickening. And yes, being a Protestant is probably one of the better forms of Christianity, if I'm going to be honest, to be. Anyway, so uh, that's what that it may have happened. I don't know. Who's to say? So these beings, right, presumably were not believed to be earthly. So they would do this, they would behead someone and then communicate through the head, just like this rumor of the Knights Templar and John the Baptist's head, and were looked to for guidance. Okay. So I don't know. I don't know if it's true, strange if true, wild if true. Whether this is true or not, we do know that in schools of instruction at Wewelsburg and others, less completed castles at Sonthofen in Bavaria, Vogelsang in, I can't say German, other castles, okay? Candidates were systematically prepared to participate in atrocities, right? We see this a lot with dark occultism and how it creates detachment and therefore a better capability of completing atrocity. Each school had its dormitories, refectories. So we'll just go back up to Wewelsburg here. Chapel room, meditation cloister, and private cemetery. In Wewelsburg, a library of 12,000 volumes comprising all of the known literature relating to the cult of race was made available. René Alou relates that in each of these schools, men stripped to the waist and without any defensive weapons were taught to become hard by such ordeals as fighting off for 12 minutes attack dogs that were unleashed and incited to kill. What the heck? If the candidates took flight, they were shot. Another gruesome preparation for pitilessness, according to Alou, consisted of tearing out the eyes of 3 cats. Oh my goodness. With one's bare hands. I'm sorry, I should have put a not safe for work warning on this one. Throughout these barbarities, one had to show utter indifference to sorrow, right? Again, detachment. Officer candidates were often told to pull a pin out of a grenade, balance it on their helmets, and stand at attention until it exploded. Such training gave men the ability to walk unmoved among corpses. And such ferocities were coupled in the classroom with racist educational courses designed to separate the SS man further from the outside world because they were deliberately anti-Christian, right? I wrote Satanic in the margin here, and quickly created a climate of neo-paganism, right? So this still happens to this day. A lot of these neo-pagan sort of crypto-fascists are out there. Trust me, I've met some. So they were into neo-paganism. Christian names were replaced with Teutonic names. Christmas was brought forward to the winter solstice and celebrated as Yuletide, which an SS manual assured was the, quote, greatest festival of our forebears. They advanced towards the Yule night with firebrands to liberate the sun from bondage of wintry death, and thought of it as a young hero come to rouse and free them from their death-like sleep. On Christmas Eve, the main ingredients of festive fare must be carp, roast goose, and wild boar, drawn respectively from the sphere of water, air, and earth. Right? The four, and then what is the missing element there? Wind? No, air is there. Water. I'm not good at that. You guys know the four elements. We'll look. Why not? The four elements. Fire? Is fire missing? Yeah, I think it's fire. Yeah, earth, water, fire, air. Okay. So these each represented one of the four elements. In view of the fact that this is the greatest clan festival, it is becoming customary to exchange ideas about the success of the steadily deepening research into family genealogies. The cult of ancestors, which Himmler fostered to give his men a feeling of being a part of a great continuum, also took in the Germanic forebears of the Middle Ages. Like Lanz's New Templars, SS members delved into the occult mysteries of the Grail legends. We talked about that in this book before. And all their mystical rituals. And says Joachim Fest, Joachim, I never know how to say that name, Joachim. This guy says, not only conferred a special distinction, but also placed them under a special obligation, had the additional purpose of overwhelming those present with a melancholic shudder at his, meaning Himmler's, innate demonism. Over and above this, they were intended to inspire those states of rapture which are so easily transformed into brutal and merciless violence. But none of this belies the initiatory character of these solemn hours, which amounted to a repeated act of consecration and total commitment to a community opposed to all traditional ties, one that seriously demanded, quote, unconditional liberation from the old social world of caste, class, and family, and proclaimed its own law as springing unconditionally from the mere fact of belonging to the new community. Let's see what you guys are saying, if anything. General Meow Meow says, what makes cult belief and practice so insane is it's so schizo. I know. It's so superstitious, isn't it? But the people practicing it never place together the fact that older practitioners have failed. The magic is a LARP. Yeah, that's a tough part to read. As an animal lover myself. You heard a weird story about the chemical adrenochrome creates detachment. Yeah, I don't have any proof of any of that stuff, so I tend not to talk about it. I know they're out there, they don't hide. Yeah, they're pretty blatant about it, even lately. Yes, earth, air, fire, water, the four elements. Actually, speaking of the four elements, speaking of water, I'm going to take a really short break. I got to turn on my air conditioner and I'm going to move around for a second, so I'll be right back. All right, I have returned. Uh, YouTube censored you? What did what did you say? Maybe you could say it in a more cryptic way. uh, you got that treatment on a comment to a video, something about words trigger. Yeah, I think it's called Google's Jigsaw. I think it's able to detect certain no-no words that you're not supposed to say here on the YouTube waves. Uh, Immediate deletion. It's channeling its inner Nazi. It's AI, which may or may not be a demonic force that's being unleashed into the world. I don't know. I don't know. It's up to you to decide. All right. So where was I here? Since the members of this new community were heirs to the old German nobility, it mattered with whom they mated and begot children. The future of the German people depended on it. Himmler laid down elaborate rules for marriage. So again, I wrote cult. We'll just scroll back up to Himmler here. He must have enjoyed prying into the most intimate details of his men's lives. Yeah, he loved being a spy. He loved writing everything about everybody. I was a little busybody POS. Future wives had to pass the same rigorous test for Arianism as SS men. At christenings, as at deaths, the priest was supplanted by the local SS leader. Every fourth child born to an SS man received a present of a candlestick with the inscription, "You are only a link in the clan's endless chain." The breeding catalogues of the Order's Race and Settlement Bureau read like one of Lanz von Liebenfell's tracts. Men were urged to have children out of wedlock, right? With racially pure women, and there were special facilities set up for these purposes, right? The exploitation of women is always present in these groups. Were these brothels? Not sure. It kind of reminds me of Epstein's Zorro Ranch, which he wanted to create a breeding center because I think the spirit of evil transcends race and religion, and all sorts of kinds of people can embody this spirit of evil. At the height of the war, Himmler had so many of his men and so much money involved in esoteric research projects that it began to seem as if he hoped to turn the tide in Germany's favor by fathoming the secrets of Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry, the occult meaning of Gothic spires and top hats worn by the boys at Eton, and the symbolism involved in the suppression of the Ulster harp. These projects were all undertaken by the Foreign Intelligence Service, and I wrote here in the margin, they were the OG conspiracy theorists. All right, so it's going to briefly touch on the Ahnenerbe here. The most ambitious researches were done by the Ahnenerbe, which had a group of financiers called the Circle of Friends, led by Wilhelm Kepler. So here's an image of Wilhelm. They're all such pleasant looking men, aren't they? Led by Wilhelm Kepler, and they paid enormous sums for a flight to Tibet to look for traces of a pure Germanic race which might have been able to keep intact the ancient Nordic mysteries. The Ahnenerbe also had archaeologists digging up all of Europe for remains of Germanic culture. More than 50 departments in this branch succeeded in suspending over 1 million marks on such vital matters. But the most incredible research of all was set up in 1939 in Berlin. An astrologer, so here we have this astrologer who has an interesting story unto himself, Wilhelm Wolff, was made prisoner of the SS and coerced into working for it, and described the Berlin Institute's scientific, so-called scientific research center as being used to harness not only natural but supernatural forces, all intellectual, natural, and supernatural sources of power, from modern technology to medieval black magic, and from the teachings of Pythagoras to the Faustian pentagram incantation, were to be exploited in the interests of a final victory. In March 1942, the astrologer joined this very strange company, he said, which included spiritualist mediums and sensitives, pendulum practitioners, dowsers who used a pendulum instead of a dowsing rod, students of Tatwa, an Indian pendulum theory, astrologers and astronomers, ballistics experts, and mathematicians. Under the direction of a Navy captain who believed that British intelligence was able to find the whereabouts of German U-boats simply by sitting in the in the office. Sorry. So I think this guy was like feeding them some misinformation, right? So he was telling them that in this office in London, they would swing a pendulum over a map and find the U-boats. Notice, thank goodness we invented radar, I guess. Noticing when the pendulum would begin to rotate and radioing a message to British destroyers telling them the exact location of the U-boats, Himmler decided to have his people do the same. I think they were probably fed some misinformation, because what was actually happening was they were cracking the code. And so actually the British had simply succeeded in breaking the secret German codes. One member of the German team, Ludwig Straniak, a Salzburg writer and architect, claimed that he could hold a pendulum over a picture of a boat and then search the map with the same pendulum. The German Admiralty was impressed and let him swing. He and others sat for hours on end, day after day, arms outstretched over maps. But says Wilhelm Wolff, who was also adept in occultism, quote, "The results were of course pitiful. Whatever one may think about occult phenomena, it was simply ridiculous to expect that an unknown world could be forcibly opened up in this dilettante fashion and exploited for military purposes." And so he's kind of interesting to me. I had never heard of him before reading this chapter. And if you go to the Imager link, it will link you to this Wilhelm Wolff, The Devil's Astrologer, which I find to be quite an interesting story. Like even he, as an occultist, knew that they weren't going to win, because according to him, these were, unseen forces in the world that I think they control you. You don't control them, as seen by perhaps their channeling of demons into the heads of people they decapitated, sorry. I don't know. Anyway, that's just my speculation. Well, this is for entertainment purposes only. When the experimenters began to suffer from nervous exhaustion, the project was moved out of Berlin and into the quieter surroundings on the island of Sylt, which I have an image here, perhaps on the basis that a little ozone would help the vibrations. Wolff, as a student of Vedanta and Buddhist yoga, went on to work with German soldiers, instilling in them the Zen Buddhist beliefs which inspired the Japanese. The pendulum swingers surfaced again in 1943 after Mussolini was arrested by the government of Pietro Badoglio. Although Hitler was most anxious to rescue him, German intelligence could not find out where he was held captive. The same occultists who had been arrested after Hesse's flight were now released and taken to a villa in Wannsee, where Himmler ordered them to use pendulums, clairvoyance, astrology, or any other means to locate the missing dictator. As Schellenberg recounts, quote, "These seances cost a mint of money because the scientists," in scare quotes here, "needed in the way of good food, drinks, and smokes was enormous," right? They weren't going to be just doing this for free. They needed good food and good cigarettes. After a while, a pendulum maestro said, "Island to the west of Naples." In fact, the deuce had first been taken to one of the small Ponza islands that he indicated. It must be stated in all justice that the man had no contact with the outside world at the time of the experiment. Though this experiment is innocuous enough, it is a further demonstration that an occult climate existed in the SS. Not only existed, it was like its bread and butter. Its members could not have accepted the crazy ideology which goaded them into ridding the world of supposed evil by wiping out millions of people if they had not been first turned into robots or like inducted basically into a cult methodically and successfully, so that one of their leaders, Robert Lay, could announce to them, quote, "When I look at you, my men, I know that the principles on which we mustered you are right. Externally, you already look alike, and in short time, you'll be alike inside as well." Right? You will be the perfect cult member. We are learning now from contemporary cults in America, again, this book is from the 70s, that the process of turning human beings into robots can actually begin quite innocently. Okay. All right, I'll take that with a grain of salt. Dusty scholar. Uh, Among SS men, it was so effective that even at the end of the war, they were still able to call their unscrupulous acts sacred deeds. And that thus ends chapter 10 of our Nazis in the Occult book. Thank you, all three people who are here right now: Terry Strange, General Meow Meow, and maybe Jenny is still here. I don't know. But if you're watching this on catch up and you feel like donating money to me, just scan that QR code up at the top left there. It'll bring you to my Ko-fi page, and you can send me virtual money if you feel like it, which makes me feel awful to even say, but hey, why not in this day and age? I will gladly do this for free, though. I mean, like, I enjoy reading these and presenting my little slideshows to you guys. All right, what else have you guys said in the chat here? Himmler looks like a tech bro nerd that got way too much power. I still don't, he must have been one of those, like, really, he must have been really good at like, ass kissing, you know? Because I don't really understand. He just doesn't seem like, first of all, he seems bright in some ways, but really stupid in other ways. And this obsession, this occult obsession, didn't seem to pan out very well for them. So, and I guess he just seems like an awful, awful man. Probably one of the worst. Out of wedlock. Yes, exactly. Yeah, they wanted to do breeding farms, just like Jeffrey Epstein. And someone called me out for saying Elon Musk likes to do stuff like that. But then I don't know how you explain all of his different surrogacy baby mama stuff otherwise. See, and he's obsessed with population. Elon Musk is obsessed with population, thinks that the population is gonna be dwindled. Meanwhile, Elon Musk promotes weird, you know, anime pornography on his platform. He's a demon. I don't know. There's something deeply, deeply wrong with this man, for sure. And maybe someday I'll make like a real video about him. People always get upset when you attack their sacred cows, and Elon Musk certainly is one of them. Imagine outsourcing the war strategy of your country to some dude that played Dungeons and Dragons. That's World War II Germany. They look like fuddy-duddies. Imagine you work your butt off to be an SS and you end up getting decapitated by your homie. I know, right? Like, you're like doing all these humiliation rituals and you're breaking your butt on these obstacle courses and you're getting attacked by dogs. And, you know, then they lead you into a room and you're like, oh crap, I'm the sacrificial lamb. What a nightmare. Yeah, so if anyone's watching this on Ketchup, scan the QR code and give me some money. Elon Musk is disgusting. So I got off X because it's just a shit show. And he was promoting, like, first of all, on that platform, you can't seem to unfollow him no matter what you do. You're still going to see posts by Elon Musk. And I don't know if it'll, but he was promoting this like anime AI stuff, right? Here's someone that wrote about it. Elon Musk's AI introduces controversial AI companions, lustful anime girls. So it's such a contradiction. Like, he doesn't make any sense. Like, if he really cares about the population, why would he be pushing this? And I actually asked Joe Allen when I met him. I was like, why do you think he's doing that? He leaned over. He said, he's a pimp. I guess that's an explanation. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? He's calling for people to cancel Netflix because Elon Musk wants to have his own, media empire, in my opinion. So that maybe that's why. What can you give me more info? Maybe I'll just type it in. I have not been on theirs for a while because I have other things to do, and I will literally. That site is like crack. Like, I will literally scroll it forever, and I have other things that I like to look at, and it was a huge distraction. So Elon Musk asks people to cancel Netflix. You also can't get away from AI no matter what you do these days. Just clicking on random links. I don't know what these sites are, but that's the first hit here. Elon Musk wants you to cancel your Netflix subscription. Here's why. So I don't have Netflix, although we do use Netflix to look at my friend's parents' Netflix account. But I've said for a really long time that I think Netflix is satanic, that it really did destroy the film industry. Like, you can have issues with the film industry, you can think it's satanic, whatever you want, but personally, as somebody who loves movies, as somebody who wanted to be a filmmaker, I think Netflix really destroyed the industry. All of its low budget, really crappy looking production value, and the fact that actors don't get residuals if they make these streaming things, they don't get paid. So it's just all around, I think, like a really bad deal for artists involved in the industry. You can criticize Hollywood, you can say it's satanic, certainly, but I still believe there are a lot of films that could be made that would be amazing, and I still think that there are films that are made that are very good. Like, I saw Eddington in the theater, and I still want to do an analysis of it. But yeah, I don't tend to watch a lot of Netflix. And if I do, it's probably like they're weird. Well, even their documentaries are bad. Like, I watched a documentary on Netflix about American Apparel that was seriously lacking in information on the founder of American Apparel and all of his nastiness. Anyway, so Elon Musk, what's his reason? Let's find out. So now I'm just chilling. Elon Musk brought down the hammer and doubled down recently on calls for Netflix subscribers to cancel their membership. His stern position on the matter comes from Hamish Steele's comments. I don't know who that is. The director of a canceled Netflix animated series made comments about conservative activist, it's the Charlie Kirk stuff. As a result, he's calling for subscribers to take out Netflix while also taking aim at the streaming giant's LGBTQ programming. And they do a lot of that. They're one of the main purveyors of grooming efforts, which I also think destroy art. I don't necessarily want to see a film that has such a blatant message. That's why I liked Eddington, because it wasn't clear what Ari Aster was trying to. It was not hammering any left or right into you. For me, it was one of the best things I saw this year. It was pure art, I thought. And that's what I think art, if it's very good, it transcends these things. It creates questions. It's ambiguous, right? It's not hitting you over the head with this propaganda stuff. They care about nothing except money and power. People are mad about the trans mess in all the kids shows. Yeah, I mean, I am too. I think it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. See if we can find any clips of Netflix. Maybe I have to go to Yandex, the Russian search engine. Netflix grooming kids clips. I don't know. I don't know if I can find anything at such short notice. That might be something I do a different show on. I mean, it's been going on for a really, really long time. I don't know when I started to notice that programming, but I've always hated Netflix. Like I said, I think it destroyed the industry. Terry says so many of the kids' programs have trans characters and it's unnecessary. Shouldn't we be, with children's programming, shouldn't we be teaching them how to count? I just remember my children's programming, right, which was PBS, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, you're teaching them how to count, how to say words. It shouldn't be an agenda-driven thing. Children's programming should be, just like teaching, should be neutral presentation of information and the tools that your students need to succeed. Perspective can supersede aesthetics and ethics in extension and art. Oof, that's dense. So perspective can surpass how it looks and also ethical qualities that's a dense sentence, my friend, an extension in art. Maybe you could explain what you mean a little bit, because I'm stupid. I don't know what you're saying. I think once art has a blatant message about anything, it becomes propaganda. But I like to make things simple. So maybe you could break that down for me a little bit more. Is there anything else we want to touch on while we're here today? We finished our chapter. I got a bunch of Breitbart links from here. What is this? Is this new? I guess Kelly Keen Minchell was showing this on her live stream earlier. I missed it, but it says Obama's Netflix grooming syndicate dropped gay wedding and kiss into kitty cartoon. This is something they've been doing for a really long time. I'd say at least a decade now. So after 4 seasons spent luring little kids into watching the animated program Ada Twist Scientist, and the Netflix grooming syndicate decided to drop a gay marriage and same-sex kiss into season 4's 11th episode. And Callie made a good point, no child. I remember even when my parents would kiss, I didn't want to see stuff like that. So it really is. It's you don't have children's programming in mind if this is what you're forcing. So let's look at it. Let's take a look together. Maybe I can make it big. Right. Of course, now it's refusing to play. All right, let me hit refresh and see if we can get it to play. Though, I really hate the Libs of TikTok account. I was going to make a short show about this, but like, I think the witch hunts on either side are really disgusting. You know, we live in America. People should, even if people are saying terrible stuff, they should be able to say it and be able to keep their jobs. Sorry. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but
Okay, I've got eyes on the cake. Flowers are inbound. People, where's my glitter?
This is Cherry Chet reporting from the wedding of the year. Everyone's favorite karate instructor, Sensei Dave, will be marrying mixed martial arts champion Jiu-Jitsu Joe.
He's the undisputed champion of my heart.
Good hustle, team.
yeah. Maybe another unpopular opinion, maybe not so much with my audience, but I just don't. First of all, I think surrogacy is totally wrong, and that seems to be the most popular method by which gay male couples procure children, and tech giants like Elon Musk and celebrities. But I have, and there's no like, it's just an ick, you know? I just get the ick vibe from when two men have a child. And we do have cases of these guys. There was a recent one where he had like surpassed some kind of security. I don't even know how they got a child, and he ended up being a PDF. So yeah, I don't know. I just get the ick. It just like is an instinct. Like it's just wrong. I have no other explanation for it. Call me. I mean, I've been called all the worst, terrible things like now for years and years. So I don't really care what people call me anymore.
We just might pull this off. Whoa, oops. Sorry, Sensei Dave.
Careful, Rosie. Miss Chen, can we take a quick break?
You got it, lovebirds.
Bring it in. Are you excited for your big day?
I can't wait to kick things off.
Thanks for making our special day happen. We can't wait for all our family and friends to visit our favorite place in the world.
We all wanted to help. Even Professor Flowerbomb.
I couldn't miss Sensei Dave's big day. He taught me how to really smash stuff. Oh, now let's get ready to romance.
I also hate this animation style that seems to have taken over. It's so corny. Yeah, why is this in children's programming?
I can't wait for my mom
It's got a lot of red and white happening here. We're sacrificing purity a bunch, I
to
see.
feast her eyes on this. I haven't seen her in way too long.
The seating chart says she's in the front row, so she'll have a perfect view of the ceremony. Can we help
Why would children be organizing a wedding?
with anything else?
Well, there is one thing, actually. Could you collect everyone's phones and tablets when they come in?
We want to make sure everyone is paying attention.
To us.
Right, because we're narcissists. They can't even like. Oh my god. That's the best when they self-admit, you know? They really when they, you know, when they show you, they show you.
Aww.
I do.
I definitely do.
I now pronounce you husband and husband. You may kiss the groom.
Ew. All right. Well, now that I've thoroughly repulsed myself. All right, let's see what's going on. So Frigid Rigid is explaining their perspective more here. Ethics as derived from aesthetics, per such theory, such as theory of beauty and morals, perspective or the point of view, which is a matter of subject, gives such the meta, i.e. meta context of which meaning relates. Yeah, I still don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. Maybe write me an email where you explain your position about that more. I feel like this is too heavy to do in a chat. They're not just gay, they're manly gay. Yeah, surrogacy is wrong, full stop. You're renting a womb. We have some serious issues in our culture where we've dehumanized people, right? I think it was General Meow Meow maybe a few streams ago, like everyone's a commodity, right? And so we've reduced people. This is very sort of cybernetic approach to humans, to just the sum of their parts, and basically they see human beings as machines, and that there's no problem in this outsourcing of pregnancy. And I believe actually, like, the entire transhuman project is to eventually outsource pregnancy to make it a totally unnatural process, like maybe in the film like Gattaca, if you've seen that, which is actually one of my favorite science fiction films of all time. Yeah, children are not a commodity. I totally agree. CPS has a lot of dirty laundry per state. It's no wonder. And kids have a right to both their parents. Totally agree. I just think it's wrong. I just don't think two men should raise babies. I don't know. Call me a horrible homophobic bigot. Like, I don't really care at this point. I've been called lots of things, and none of them bother me now. I don't know. It just gives me the ick, man. Gonna need some heavy eye bleach, homie. Terry Strange, I'd favor that idea as liberty, although it alone doesn't account for the possibilities of coercion, and as further the discernment of the best interests of the child. So, you favor what? What idea? Surrogacy as a liberty? I don't know, man. I don't know who Frigid Richard is, but sometimes they say things that I don't understand. And I think Frigid Rigid likes to use large vocabulary words to sound more intelligent. That's what I think. Oh, the comment was about CPS. Okay. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up for me. It's been a little over an hour. If you're here on catch up, or if you're here right now, scan the QR code at the upper left of your screen and send me some money. Otherwise, I'll just continue to do this for free. It's very fun for me. Yeah, cool username for sure. I just think, for me, I prefer simplicity, and I don't think using large words makes your message clear. I think it makes you sound like an academic type who might still be stuck in the academy. I don't know, maybe you think I'm stupid for not understanding. I just don't feel like parsing all of that out. So call me lazy and stupid, call me homophobic. I don't know. I just don't think this stuff should be in children's programming. It's not necessary. It's total grooming. And like I said, I've been called everything under the sun, so nothing bothers me now. Periphery of the autism spectrum, have a lot of thoughts in your mind. So, feel free if you want to. I just feel like comments are not personally like the forum for me to like indulge in these sort of heavy ideas, if that makes sense. And if you want to write me longer emails concerning your perspective on art or anything, I love to read email. So, and it's easier for me personally to digest. Yeah, you're totally valid. And I appreciate you. I just don't think I always understand you. You had a very punchable face. Oh my goodness. Oh my. All right, friends. Well, we did it. We read chapter 10 of Nazis and the Occult. We touched on some current events. I do not know when I shall return. Looks like God is helping me out. Everybody, please pray for me. You suppose being wordy is a bit obtrusive for what I'm doing here. Yeah, it's just obtuse. It's a little too much for me to part. Like, I'm not over here reading like Nietzsche in my comments. Does that make sense? Like, it's too much for me. Maybe because I'm slow. I don't know. Like, I do appreciate you being here, and No, I don't want you to say you're sorry. Okay. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I want this to be an open forum. And, it's really important to me that anyone tunes in because it gives me a validation, right? It makes me feel like I'm being heard. So you're here, and maybe I'm just a little too dense to understand what you're saying. Uh, and if you want to write me like a longer, I'm more able to parse stuff out like that. Maybe I'm autistic, who knows? When it's in a longer form in like an email, and I can reread things and parse things out. You said, I worked myself into this sort of headspace, and I found it harder to be more simplistic with my words. I mean, it's really great to have a big vocabulary, and I think it can serve a lot of really good functions in your life. Um, and you should be proud of that. You should be proud of having a big vocabulary. I'm sorry if I was being mean earlier. I really am. Oh my goodness. It personally for me, I guess I've just always tried to simplify things, and so maybe that's my flaw. Who knows? We're all fallible human beings. We all have our little issues. Of, at least no one here is an occult Nazi. And that's, I guess, my final thing that I'll say is that people really need to stop throwing around the word Nazi, because they were a very specific group. I do think there are people that have neo-Nazi tendencies, but in my experience, there are fewer of them than there are of like the rest of the people in the world. And I don't think calling everybody a Nazi has done anyone on the left, let's say, any favors. Anyway, so I think that's going to do it for me. Scan the QR code, send me some cash. Otherwise, please pray for me. I'll pray for you as well. The thoughts and prayers to you all. Thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate everyone who shows up. So Frigid Rigid, thank you so much for showing up. And, I appreciate your comments, even if I don't always understand them. At least the Nazis had the decency to dress well. What was it? Was there who's their famous fashion designer? What the heck is his name? Nazi fashion designer. It's like an H, right? Hugo Boss, that's right. German fashion designer of the Nazis. I mean, they had a whole thing. They had a whole thing. And that's why I think they're so fascinating, because for me, I don't know why, I mean, it never gets old, but like they just really thought, first of all, they thought they were going to win. Second of all, they really present a very good case study into cult mentality, how it works. They provide a great case study into the Satanic occult. And yeah, they looked good while they were doing it. It was a very well thought out production, wasn't it? All right. So yes, no, thank you. And I appreciate you. Appreciate you. They manufactured the uniforms. Right. Totally. All right, guys. Everyone, take care. I'll catch you on the flip side, and have a nice day. Peace in the Middle East.